system had spread. So things are going faster and faster and faster. As we look forward, we have, as I say, a duty to make sure that the web we design serves humanity and optimally. People look on the web and they see good things and they see bad things. Sometimes they look on the web and they see new systems starting and they're not sure whether at the end they're going to serve well or ill. People have a lot of questions. Where should we draw the line with privacy? What should we do now about managing how we use different pieces of information we've got from different people, and how we respect people's wishes for information to be used in particular ways? There are lots of concerns about it. So, as we look forward, obviously there are some things which we know are going to happen, some things which are going to be invented by our students, by people, they may be by people at this conference, which I can't imagine. But some of the things we can look forward to. For example, we know that one important change which is happening is that the web is getting onto these mobile devices. And importantly, it's not just people in this room who carry fancy portable digital assistants in their pockets, but the nice thing is when the web works on this, it will also work on cell phones that people have in developing countries where those cell phones may be the only access they have to the internet. So there is a really important move to make sure that, you should make sure that your website, try it on your phone. You should try it on your phone, not just because you want the executives around you to be able to access it when they're in their executive planes, but because when they can access it on their phone, then maybe it'll be useful by people in developing countries who otherwise would not be able to get it at all. So the mobile web is one area in which we're moving. Another area which I'm really emphasizing this year, and I'd like everybody to go and take away and emphasize this year as well, is that as well as having the documents on the web, also we should have data on the web. A lot of life, a lot of running a government, a lot of running a company, a lot of doing scientific research, you have data. You have databases, you have spreadsheets, you have data which may not be very interesting to look at immediately, but if somebody takes it and combines it with other data and displays it, you can discover all kinds of new things, new science. You can perhaps help a company avoid an awkward financial situation. You can help a government use its resources more effectively. You can draw conclusions about what one government has done and what another government has done. Maybe you can look at healthcare information and old clinical trials and chemical information, and you can discover a new drug to cure AIDS or to cure cancer. These really important things that we need to do, we can do if we have access to the data. At the moment, some of the ideas which will be parts of the solutions to these problems are in people's heads, people's brains of scientists across the world. But very often, a lot of the knowledge which we need is sitting in the computer next to them in a disk. And even if we can get to it through a web page, really, we don't want that. A scientist doesn't want to see a web page, they want the data. So we've got this movement called linked open data. It's the movement for open linked data. Linked data is like linked documents, but it's data. It's very simple, and it's now growing. I'm very excited the way that it's taking off, and I hope that by the end of this year, we'll see a significant amount of government data being put on the web. Already it's starting. There's in various countries. There's some US data, government data, which is out there on the web, some UK government data on the web. There's some very interesting projects based in Berlin at the Freie Universität. So this linked open data movement is something which is very topical at the moment, and I urge you to remember it if you have to remember one thing from this. But then these are some of the things which hopefully will make the web more powerful and make the web more exciting. But if you stand back and, as we did for a group of us with Wendy, at one point we were sitting back and thinking, okay, so the goal of web science then should be to that the web should serve humanity, right? And when we looked at that, we thought, well, you know what? WSRI, the Web Science Research Initiative, and web science isn't actually going to be enough, because it's not just science you need. Yes, science tends to investigate exciting new things for the early adopters, for people in developed countries. The only moment you talk about serving humanity, immediately you realize that 80% of the world doesn't use the web. For 80% of the world, maybe they're in a place that has no phone signal. Well, actually, a lot of them, an awful lot of them do have signal. But some of them, they have signal but no phone. They can't afford a phone yet. Some of them have a phone, but it doesn't have a web browser on it. But a lot of phones, most of the phones being made now have web browsers on them. So maybe they have a phone, they have a web browser on it, but they live in a country which uses a character set which wasn't really available and isn't available on the phone. Maybe Ethiopian characters that, for example, may not be available on every phone. So, well, or maybe they have a phone, they have a web browser, they have the right characters. They can go to a website, but when they go to a website, it's a social networking website, and they can see what it says. But really, the way that social networking site works was designed for an American teenager, female American teenager. And in their village, the society works differently, so that there's a cultural difference. So that really, they need to be able to make their own social networking site, which they need to be able to run from a little server in their own village. Maybe if they have a central water-powered recharging point for their cell phones, maybe at that point they could put a little wireless base station and a web server where they could do their own social networking system, which would connect to the other villages and so on in their own way. One of the things which has been very nice to see has been that when people are in really difficult situations, they use whatever technology they get in very creative ways. So when you look at all that, that is a really important part, and it wasn't really covered by web science. So various people who'd been involved in the web from different angles decided that it was time that we should form a World Wide Web Foundation. And as we stand here in this foundation for the Hellenic world, I can tell you that we're planning a foundation, if you like, for the virtual world. And there may be a large overlap, if you go next door, between the virtual world and the Hellenic world. But the foundation for the virtual world, the World Wide Web Foundation, should coordinate across the board. It should get where people are on the ground in developing countries with understanding of what is needed there. And there are researchers, maybe here, who have an imagination where they can see what would be possible if it was needed. Then they need to be coordinated. We need to get them connected. We need to make sure that we promote the development of the web as part of the development, connected to the healthcare development, the economic development in developing countries. But also we need to connect it to the researchers so that the research is done with an awareness of what the needs are for the whole 100% of the world, not just for the 20%. And then when industry meets to gather and they decide on new standards that they're going to put into the cell phones, they need to be informed by both of these things, by the needs that people have all over the world, and also they need to be informed by the brightest ideas come from the craziest of scientists, wherever they've come from, whichever discipline they're in, who've met at a web science conference and discussed what could be possible. So that is something that we're doing now. We are starting a World Wide Web Foundation. That is something for the next phase. If you're interested in it, do go to webfoundation.org or talk to me afterwards, and that will, I hope, tie together a huge number of hopes and dreams and take us on into a very exciting future, most of which will be things which none of us here can possibly imagine now. Thank you very much.